We are with quite a legend, Kiddy Citny from Germany, who is responsible for some of the murals in the 1980s on the Berlin Wall. And you are now gifting Hong Kong with a mural of its own. And I wondered first if you could tell that crazy story from the 80s. We talk about how that situation in Germany, how it was impossible until it wasn't. And to see the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. What's your story with regards to art and basically breaking into East Germany, right, to paint the wall?
Berlin was like the capital of the Cold War in the 80s. There were communism and capitalism, and in the middle, that wall that divided East and West Germans. They all spoke the same languages. They had families, they had love affairs, East-West. And they had this big wall in the middle. So I started with other friends in the early 80s to paint on that wall, to give pictures for hope that wall.
On the east side?
On the west side, definitely. Yeah. On the east side, I would have been shot if I would have painted. So it was only possible on the west side.
Some of it is preserved, right, in Germany? Some portions of the wall, sections.
Yes, they are now in museums as a symbol of the new freedom.
And so you've been creating art ever since then?
Yeah, I've been creating art since the early 80s. And my most favorite is like to do art in public, because art as the highest form of communication has to be seen by the people who are living in the city, and that's why I still love to do street art.
Well, before we talk about the Hong Kong connection, your curator, Thomas, is also here. I hope you got permission for this somehow. Yeah. And what are the practicalities of setting this up this week? And maybe you can describe what
Sure.
we're looking at.
Well, this was a suggestion. We have some contacts in the local artistic community, including the street art scene. So there were a number of places they suggested might be useful. And this one, I think we settled on in the end because the dimensions were right. And it's actually nice for pedestrian access. Street art is an offering to the local community, and we've had a lot of great feedback from passers-by and local
taking
shops.
almost 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days of work. So that was the location. Actually, it has worked out very nicely for this. But the image itself, when we came up with the idea of bringing Kiddy, I met Kiddy really by accident in a gallery. I was in Berlin doing some research, and his work was on display for the 30th anniversary of the wall coming down, with the work of Thierry Noir, who was a Frenchman who also painted at the same time as Kiddy. And I was in the gallery alone with the gallerist, and a man came in and started taking photos of the paintings. And the gallerist said, "Sir, that's not allowed." And he turned around and said, "I'm the artist." So she introduced us, and we started talking, and I suggested that he'd come to Hong Kong, that I would help set up something in Hong Kong because of the parallels between the struggles during the Cold War and the struggles here for civil rights, human rights, etc. So we corresponded, and I came back to Berlin, visited his studio, and we were looking at some possible things he could do here, and we set on something that's fairly close to this, actually, but it so suits the circumstances here, because you have as Kiddy sees it, this is a personification of Hong Kong. It's the Jeanne d'Arc.
Not Carrie Lam, I hope.
No, not Carrie Lam. And it's a study in the ambiguity of the situation here, because she's in the waves. Is she rising or sinking? Is the hand outstretched a sign of defiance or despair, despondency? The crown, of course, is a great symbol of autonomy, self-rule, the natural right of peoples to rule themselves. And the yellow, of course, you know what yellow means in this context. Importantly, the globe is crucial to the image, because it's both it's a struggle of global consequence, but it's a struggle that is taking place in other parts of the world. And moreover, it's a struggle, I think, that Hong Kong people need the help of the larger world to help them succeed.
Well, exactly. Let's ask the artist himself. Is she rising or falling into the ocean? And what's the Hong Kong connection for you?
The Hong Kong connection is like hope, because without hope, we all could. So hope is what I want to give to the Hong Kong people, because also hope Hope was a thing in the Berlin thing, and it came out as a peaceful revolution. So I want to give courage and hope
Do you
for a free future for everybody in the city.
I mean, you must have been watching the scenes from home of the protests. A lot of those we speak to, they know they can't win. They often are not so hopeful in their tone about their future in Hong Kong. I mean, what do you make about Hong Kong's future when you compare it to, your life in Germany? What do you think?
The Hong Kong's future is to continue, and my hope is a lot of very big stars like Madonna. They should. Thomas could describe it.
Well, no, it's a bit scandalous, really, that some of these famous A-list celebrities, so-called, have done really nothing to help Hong Kong or the Uyghurs, and we do see a connection, of course, between a lot of the circumstances here and the plight of the Uyghurs. The Uyghur story is one of the great scandals of our lifetime. In the 21st century, over 1 million people in concentration camps, effectively, and a very anemic response from politicians around the world, certainly. So we want to try to mobilize from the ground up. Really, this is how change can be affected today. And so that's an important connection we should mention, which we talked about at the beginning of the project. Again, the globe, but that's with specific reference to them. I mean, that's the closest point of reference, I think. Also, Tibet, the Tibetan story which everyone seems to have forgotten.
There's often pressure on the Brits. I'm a Brit, to speak up. Are you American?
Yes.
And of course, you're a German, and we were
Yes.
talking earlier about, of all countries in Europe, actually Germany is a bit more outspoken. They've taken dissidents, into the country. Are you satisfied with how much Merkel has spoken up, or do you think they should do more?
Should they have done definitely more?
Because of the parallels, or?
Because of the power, like Germany has a leadership in Europe, and she's speaking out like this, and she speaks it out like that.
Well, maybe finally I can ask you both. We've seen a lot of art actually come out of the movement. Almost every day this explosion of, creativity and its importance to the Hong Kong movement. What links and what's the importance, do you think, between art and political movements like this?
Well, I think street art in particular communicates directly, immediately, spontaneously, intuitively, and
especially Fuck the Popo, which you see quite often in Kowloon. It's a little less nuanced than this.
No, and I think we've sent this image out. I have students in various parts of the world, and I'm amazed at how immediately they spontaneously respond, just being polite and saying, "Oh, that's nice," but this is wonderful. This is a great piece of work. It somehow has that intuitive connection to what people know from a distance about what's going on here.
It's nicely more positive, I guess.
And I think Kiddy's point about hope and continuing the struggle, that they've succeeded already, you could say, against the odds, and actually some of the messages we've got from local people here reflect that thank you for coming, we feel a lot more encouraged now in what we're doing, and so forth. So I think that's one of the ways that art really works in where arguments and words do not.
Well, same question for you. Do you think art can inspire change like this?
Of course, because art has no language. It's a unique language, and it can be understood by everybody in the world with open eyes. And I hope that a lot of other artists all over the planet will support the Hong Kong freedom.
Okay, we're here for just a week, I understand, but anyone can come. Where are we? Just Hollywood Road on Side Street, I understand, if you want to take a look.
Hollywood Road and the corner of, yeah.
Right, just on the corner. You can't miss it, actually. And the name of the artwork?
Hong Kong Unconquered.
Okay, there's the hashtag. All right, thanks for joining us. We're going to have a quick close-up of the mural, just as we sign off. Thanks again, Kiddy.